With week 3 down and only 2 more weeks before Stage 1 playoffs, every game now is crucial and makes a major difference, especially due to the competitiveness of the league this season. Therefore, let's see what's on offer in week 4 of the Overwatch League 2019 season as I bring you my preview and predictions. Day 1 of week 4 is shorter than previous days, supplying us with only 3 matches. Yet each one has the potential to be a great series as we kick off with the Atlanta Reign against the LA Gladiators. Atlanta has become one of the most entertaining and supported expansion teams in the league, and this is not just down to the Fran. Their entire lineup has been playing very well, looking competitive and flexible in all their games. The Reign will look to continue their great run of form against a Gladiators side that is very low on morale and is desperate for a second win. With the players they have in their side, like Decay and Shaz, LA should be performing at a much higher level, and this is perhaps the last chance for them to salvage the early part of their season. After this series, the winless LA Valiant play the out of sorts Philadelphia Fusion. The Valiant's tough schedule continues as they face yet another top team. However, arguably this is one of their best chances and opponents to face given their situation, but they will need to buck the trend of their progress that is seemingly showing them getting worse week by week, and perhaps shuffle up the squad and play Custer again instead of Kuki. As I implied a second ago, Philadelphia will need to handle this game with great care to avoid an upset on their part in this trap game. This time there are no excuses, as Boombox will be back 100% and the team will need him and Carpe to play as they had been in week 1. This is also a great opportunity for them to look to switch up their main tank and run Fraggy, given how poor the Rhine Goats have been for both sides. They want to be more confident in bringing home the victory. We end day 1 with a fun and exciting matchup between the Toronto Defiant and the Chengdu Hunters. Toronto have been performing well under the radar of most people, particularly behind Ivy, Envy and Neko in the past week. A comfortable win here would solidify their quality status, as well as highlight their flexibility and adaptability in the face of the unusual compositions from Chengdu. For the Hunters, this game will need to show that they are aware that despite playing off meta, they are becoming a little one-dimensional and predictable. To make this a tight series, they will need to catch the Defiant off guard with something they are not expecting, or having refined some of their other strategies even more over the past week. Moving on to day 2, again we only have 3 games, but all of them should show top tier quality and competitiveness, beginning with the great matchup between the Paris Eternal and the Vancouver Titans. This match simply pits one very aggressive GOAT side against another, in what is sure to be a very hectic and colourful watch. This is Paris' opportunity to highlight that they are as good as we previously thought, and that last week was just them having a bad game. For the Titans, meanwhile, this is the sort of game they will need to win to keep them at the same level as New York and confirm how strong their 3-3 truly is. The only other dynamic to this series is whether upon seeing each other's weaknesses, the teams opt for a more methodical or counter-attacking playstyle, which have shown to work well against their opponents, but would go against their normal team styles. From what should be one great series, we have another one that should be even better and is far and away my game of the week, as the New York Excelsior play the San Francisco Shock. These two teams are arguably 2 of the 3 best GOAT teams in the league, which should lead to an intense and close match as a result. For New York, this match gives them an opportunity to finish this stage undefeated at 7-0 and head into the playoffs as clear favourites. Whilst for the Shock, this is a second chance to prove that they are one of the top 2 teams in the league, as they may have felt that they let the Vancouver game slip. The key matchups will be between Nene and Sinatra on Zarya, whilst Violet gets his chance to go head to head with Jonak on Zenyatta, and the pair that performs better will likely be on the winning side. Day 2 concludes with the anticipated rematch of last week's game between the Dallas Fuel and the Shanghai Dragons. These teams went back and forth throughout their series, but it was Dallas that in the end just edged out on top, taking the match 3-2. However, I, like many, think that if a certain C9 hadn't occurred on Dorado, the Dragons could have feasibly taken map 4, and thus the series. Therefore, this is the perfect opportunity for the Dragons to right the wrongs of last week and show that they are in fact the superior team, as well as keeping them in the Stage 1 playoff hunt. For the fuel, they also get this chance to more convincingly take the victory over Shanghai, and position themselves well for a potential spot in the stage playoffs with this 4th win. As we move into the weekend, Saturday returns to 4 games, with each looking likely to be close and competitive. We start with a series of 2 surprisingly desperate sides, the LA Valiant and the Houston Outlaws. Both of these teams have plenty of quality in their lineups, but both look set to miss out on the Stage 1 playoffs. The main issues for both sides have seemingly been miscommunication and poor synergy, particularly around the use of ultimates between the front and back lines. The team that is able to improve in these areas more will walk away the victor, and be looking to lay the groundwork for future stages with better morale. Seoul Dynasty face the Washington Justice in the second series of Day 3, in what I could see as a trap game for the Dynasty. The Justice have looked far below average in quality in every game they've played so far, yet in terms of team coordination and synergy, especially in the tank line, they have been steadily improving on their 3-3. To get a result in this series, they will need to exploit the fact that Seoul have been very poor this season when attacking and setting up engagements, and as such, focus on control and assault maps. Seoul are frustrating to watch as they have great individual quality and microplay, but in nearly every series they play, it is their strategy and attack that always lets them down, even if they get the first kill. An issue that is carried over from last season, and if it's not resolved soon, they will underperform this season as well. The third game of this day sees the intriguing Guangzhou Charge go against the sorry-looking LA Gladiators. The Charge, especially behind Hopper and Shu, have a great opportunity to increase their chances of a playoff spot if they can show off their flexible roster and find a win here. The Gladiators, meanwhile, as I mentioned above, will look to regain their morale by exploiting the Charge's tendency to play too aggressively that has cost them games in the past, like against Chengdu. Day 3 concludes with the Hangzhou Spark against the Toronto Defiant. The Spark must find a win here to have any chance of making the playoffs, so they must show some coordination behind whichever main tank they play, whilst also ensuring Bebe feels comfortable in the backline. Toronto can establish themselves here as one of the top expansion teams of this season, and continue their run of momentum into the Stage 1 playoffs with a win. Week 4 concludes with 4 matches that should clarify the top teams from those at the bottom. The Paris Eternal kick us off against the San Francisco Shock, with the winners taking the plaudits for the best Western GOATS team in the league, and all but ensuring themselves a spot in the stage playoffs, with the match looking likely to be aggressive and intense based on the team's playstyles. The London Spitfire have a chance to confirm their improvement from Week 1, as they take on a solid side in the Shanghai Dragons, as they also look to lock up a playoff spot. For Shanghai, this is the best opposition they will have faced since their first victory, as they can look for an upset win and perhaps sneak into the stage playoffs. The final 2 games of Week 4 see 2 weaker teams, the Florida Mayhem and the Chengdu Hunters, take on stronger opponents in the Boston Uprising and the Vancouver Titans respectively. Florida have a chance to highlight their steady improvement against a Boston side looking a little confused about their playstyle, whilst Chengdu will try to employ some kind of odd strategy to knock off balance for high-flying Titans. As for my predictions, last week I finished 10-6 to take my overall record 27-21, though I'm not sure this week will go as well. On day 1, I see the Gladiators' woes continuing in a 3-1 loss to the Atlanta Reign, who will continue their great performances. I think the LA Valiant will improve, but still lose again in narrow fashion 3-2 to the Philadelphia Fusion, whilst the Toronto Defiant will have few difficulties beating the Chengdu Hunters in a dominating display 4-0. Looking at the great second day of matches, I don't see Vancouver losing against a Paris side, but I expect to have improved, so I'm going to go with the Titans 3-1. Equally, I don't think New York will be defeated either, but I expect the Shock to run them really close in a narrow 3-2 defeat. Finally, I see the Dragons avenging their undeserved loss to Dallas last week, with what the scoreline should have really been, with them winning 3-1. On Saturday, I'm going to finally say that the LA Valiant are able to pick up their first victory 3-1 over the Houston Outlaws, before I see Seoul just managing to survive a Washington scare, edging out a 3-2 victory. If they look at the Charge's weaknesses properly, I can see the Gladiators winning here, although it will go the distance 3-2, before Toronto topple Hangzhou in an entertaining 3-1. To conclude my Week 4 predictions, I see the San Francisco Shock defeating the Paris Eternal 3-1, although both teams will show off the high level of 3-3 they're capable of. Then, despite their best efforts, I don't see Shanghai toppling London just yet, so I'll give the Spitfire the 3-1 win, before the Boston Uprising just edge out the Mayhem in a 2-1 match. Lastly, although it will be a fun watch to end the week, I think Chengdu will be squashed by the rampage of the Titans 4-0. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, for continuing Overwatch League content moving forward.